Are you ready to redefine what it means to thrive at any age? Welcome to Age is Just a Number with BJ and Ruth. In your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, you deserve to live your best life. Say goodbye to preconceived notions and let's shatter those stereotypes together. Get ready to own your vitality because age, well, that's just a number.
Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Ruth.
And we're back talking about health and fitness. And guess what, Ruth? We're talking about everybody's favorite subject.
Body fat.
Body fat.
Fat.
Body fat, which, is not something a whole bunch of people want to talk about, but that's a big part of what we're in this for, is to have less body fat and have better muscle and muscle tone. So we want to talk today about, and Ruth, you just actually told me this. You're actually specifically working on reducing some body fat numbers.
Everybody has goals, and one of my goals is end of June. I am officially turning 55, and so I want to put on one of my competition suits again. I will be older than you again.
You still are older than you're older than me right now.
Yeah, but yes, but right now we actually share the same number. So I want to put on one of my competition suits, and so my body fat needs to come down.
Okay. So it's interesting that we are talking about body fat because I didn't know that when we were putting this together about where Ruth is at right now. So let's just we're going to talk about testing and what the best, or I don't know if there's a best, but what are the pros and cons of the different kinds of body fat testing that you can do? Because there's better ones, but there's a dollar figure associated with it. There's availability associated with it. But before we get to that, let's just talk about what is an average, or what is right now prescribed as healthy levels of body fat for men and women.
And women, sure.
Okay. So for adult men, healthy body fat is slated to be somewhere between 10 and 22%. Mm-hmm. Okay. And for healthy women, you're going to laugh, it's somewhere between 20 and 32%.
Yeah, I knew that.
So we say that to say those numbers may not be what you're after, because in Ruth's case, she wants to be below that 20% number. Right. And in my case, I would certainly, just in an off season, want to be below 10%.
As bodybuilding competitors,
say
we
that.
often, I know, I can't say
say
that once.
Quick,
say
3
that
times.
3 times. No, I can't do
bodybuilding
it.
bodybuilding competitor.
We often bring ourselves down to a level that's quite low.
Yeah, for the competition, for sure.
It's for our competition. And
but
so
I mean, just for every,
but
for an everyday number, for me, I'd like to be at a lower number.
Right.
Than that 10%.
Right.
And you would like to be at a lower number than the 20. And the point of saying that is you can figure out what works for you. Your doctor can help you with that. And we've talked about this before, that if you haven't, and you're just starting your health and fitness journey, it's probably a good idea to have a conversation with your doctor to find out kind of where your numbers are and how you rate on everything, so you can be informed. Yeah,
because I think what happens is most people don't even understand the concept of what the body fat number is. Most people think about that bathroom scale, and they hop on the scale and they want to be a certain number. And I often tell people, think about it as, what does that number consist of?
Yeah.
So for some people, it's like, well, I want to lose 5 pounds. But it's like, okay, but do you want to lose 5 pounds of muscle or 5 pounds of fat? What do you want to lose?
Yeah.
And so 125, I'm thinking about me. So 125 pounds, if my body fat is at 20%, I'm going to have a different look to me, a softer look. I'll have more body fat. I'll be carrying more fat on my body than if I was 125 pounds at 12% body fat. I'm going to be much leaner. I'm going to have more muscle. So it's go for that. A lot of people think about the number on the scale, but we're actually taking it down to the next level of what does that number consist of. So we're talking about the one component, which is your body fat percentage.
Sure. And so we want to talk today also then about how do we test the number?
Right.
How do we get a number? Because we're saying,
when you step on the bathroom scale, you get a number.
And that's great, but you don't know what that number consists of.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what are some body fat testing methods that are out there, the pros and cons, and what makes sense for you, you're going to have to figure out. But number one, probably the easiest one is caliper testing.
Which I do.
Right.
Yes.
So, that's where you, someone takes your weight, they take your height, and then they bring out the calipers and they pinch you at different points on your body. It can be 3 or 5 places,
Three or
right?
5 points, yes.
Oh, I imagine there may be more than that.
Yeah. Typically, I have a set of calipers. We could actually show this sometime, that you get down into your competition suit and I'll pinch you.
How about we do it both ways? 'Cause you're gonna.
You don't pinch me, I pinch you.
Yeah.
My calipers.
Since you're gonna. Yeah. Since you already said you're gonna
we
put
can
on
do
the
that.
suit.
We can do that, and so yeah, I typically measure by the 3 point. So there's 3 points that I'll actually pinch and measure, and then I'm looking at the person's age, height, weight, and sex.
Okay. So that is probably one of the easier ones to do. It's not the easiest, because the next one is actually the easiest, but the biggest drawback of that is accuracy. Now, for most people, you don't need to do a DEXA to get your numbers that accurate. And we're going to talk about DEXA in a minute. But for the average everybody, this is probably, in my opinion, the best way to go. It's easy to get set up, doesn't take weeks and weeks unless you're trying to coordinate with Ruth.
Am I difficult?
I think last time it was like, oh yeah, we'll do it this day. No, can't do it this day. No, we'll do it this day.
I locked them in the trunk of my car, and then I couldn't get into the trunk.
So anyway,
for a few months.
Anyway, in theory, this should be an easier and quicker process.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the biggest drawback is it's not going to be 100% accurate. But how accurate do you need it to be in order to know what numbers you're starting with?
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of this exercise, is to know where you're starting so that you can measure progress. So you know that, okay, I've come down 1%, or I've come down 5 pounds, and that was a quality 5 pounds. It was mostly fat, if not all fat.
Right.
Right? So, okay. Number 2 is bioelectrical impedance. So this is where an electrical charge gets put through the body, and it basically, whether it goes through fat or muscle, it'll do something different. And then on that, with your body weight and height and your age, a number gets produced, and that number tells you whatever. Nowadays, you can get scales that will do that. So obviously, this is something you can do at home.
Yep.
This is something that doesn't cost very much money. But I got to tell you, I have a scale like that at home.
I do too.
Is grossly inaccurate.
It sure is.
It's not kind of sort of inaccurate. It's grossly
really inaccurate.
Yeah. So that's the biggest drawback for this one. It's easy. You see these ones where you can hold the thing.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to, you put everything in and it's supposed to give you a number. I guess.
Mine is, I step on it. I have an app linked on my phone. It'll tell me when it's calculating what that weight is. It calculates it. But again, they're grossly inaccurate.
Yeah. And mine is this. Mine's not attached to my phone, but I log all my height and everything else into the scale, and then I step on and it does its thing.
Yeah.
So that is readily available, but it is by far the least accurate. Okay. All right. So now the next level, you want to talk about going up to a higher level of accuracy. With it, in all of these cases, comes a higher cost, a little bit more difficulty in terms of availability and getting access to these things. So just be aware of that. And I would again question, you might want to do something like this once just to know. Doesn't hurt. But for the average person, I don't think you need to do these, but it's out there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So number 1 is underwater weighing. It's pretty simple. Fat floats.
Yep.
So you get weighed in water, and based on your weight in terms of the fat content, muscle content, you'll get back a number.
Yep.
Pretty simple.
It's simple. It's easy to do. However, we can't do this from home. So you'll have to go somewhere and pay to have it done.
Yeah, you're not doing this in the bathtub.
No.
So that's,
Yeah, no.
I guess you can try, but
Don't drown.
that's a gigantic bathtub.
Yeah.
So usually it's in a pool
Yeah.
of some kind when this
Like
gets done.
a water tank or something. Yeah.
So, okay. The flip side of that is called air displacement plasmography, which is doing it in air versus doing it in water. So you're actually in a body pod,
Okay.
and it all has to do with how much air does your body displace in that pod. So it's actually easier to do than the water.
Sure, it would be. Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's easier to do than the water, but again, not everybody is going to have access to that.
No, you have to go to centers or places that do that and then pay to have that done.
Yeah. And number 3, and this is like the gold standard, is DEXA.
Right.
Right? Where they x-ray your body basically. And not only will you get the body fat percentage, but it'll also show you where the body fat is.
Right.
The biggest thing with DEXA is just what we said. This is typically going to require a doctor or somebody, a medical professional,
A technician
let's say.
or a center.
Yeah, some kind of medical professional to do it. It's not going to be something that you're going to get done just anywhere. And there's a cost associated with it.
Yeah.
So there may be some value in you doing that, but I think you need to look at the big picture of what it is you're trying to accomplish here. I would like to do at some point for myself, because I want to know. I would like to do a DEXA scan at some point.
Yeah.
But that may not be realistic for you and your health and fitness goals. And like Ruth's example, you want to lose 3% body fat. You don't need to go get a DEXA scan to find out if you got there.
No, I use my calipers.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So what I do is to know where I'm starting from. For instance, I hopped on my scale, which calculates that. But again, it's grossly inaccurate. So it gave me a bit of okay, I think I could be around here. And but I don't rely on it. So then I did the calipers to kind of compare. My calipers are much more accurate, and still not 100% accurate.
Yep.
I know that there is room for error.
Yep.
But then I go by that, and then as I go, so every 4 weeks, I'll recaliper, do it again.
Right. Another thing that's, I think, of value when it comes to measuring progress is photos. Because you can look in a picture and say, okay, from week to week, here's where the progress is or isn't, as the case may be.
Right.
Typically I weigh in on Saturday with my coach. So I weigh in and submit my photos every Saturday. So we can see from week to week, what is the progress? How's the progress? Is it progressing like we want? Has there been, because here's the other thing, the camera is pretty unforgiving. Without AI and Photoshop, it can be pretty
unfiltered photos
right?
don't lie.
Yeah, it can be pretty unforgiving. So that might be something to think about also. I think the other part to go with that is if you're just starting this process, do not weigh yourself every day.
No.
I think we've talked about that too, right?
Yeah, no.
And do not sit and take pictures every day. If you want to see progress, whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, that's all that's necessary.
Yeah. Typically, and when I would compete as well, it would be a once a week, submit your photos. And it would always be that we use the photos as a tool. It's not a vanity issue. We really don't want to see ourselves when we're carrying extra body fat.
Certainly not at the beginning.
No. Yeah. We use it as a tool. Are we progressing? Do we have to make any changes in the upcoming week to stay on track? So, yeah.
So use that for yourself the same way, and it'll help you to gauge progress. Because this is what this is all about. Fitness is not something that you arrive at. It's a progressive, I'll use what I think is probably the best definition I've heard of success. It's the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So it means that your ongoing lifestyle is what we're talking about, whether it's maintaining a certain body fat, adding some muscle, losing some fat, whatever it looks like, this is something that will help you with that. So Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't, please take a minute and subscribe to the channel. We're putting out regular content all the time, and so we want to make sure that you don't miss anything. And as we've said, we also want to make sure that I get to eat protein pancakes because Ruth has a recipe for zero carb, zero fat, high protein pancakes, which I will get to eat once we go over 100.
I'm not doing it until
100 subscribers. And we're going to, so the reason we say that is because when we do it, we're going to go into the kitchen with Ruth and cook, and then we're going to make the recipe available for everybody as well. And so we need to do it before I start pre-contest dieting because it won't, I don't think it's going to fit in that. So please take a minute and subscribe to the channel, like the video. It just helps us with everything. If you think this is valuable for somebody that you know, let them know, because we want to build a community that is especially for if you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s, even if you're in your 20s or 30s. But if you're in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, and you want to establish a healthy lifestyle, maybe reestablish a healthy lifestyle, right? We've talked about this. Maybe your kids are grown and gone, and now you're figuring out, okay, what do I do now?
What do I do?
Or how do I get back a hold of my health? We're here to help you with that. So, yeah, take a minute, subscribe, and I think that's it.
I think so.
We'll see you next time.